You're holding it together in a hallway. Your face is steady, your breathing is not. Then someone places a hand on your shoulder. Nothing has been solved. No sentence has explained the grief, the pressure, or the fear. But your body changes before your mind catches up. We usually treat that moment as sentimental, sweet maybe, human, but psychology is beginning to describe touch as something more precise. Touch can act like a signal, not just affection but information. You're not alone, this is safe enough, your body can stand down. In 2024, Packheiser and colleagues analyzed 137 studies, reviewed 75 more, and included 12,966 people in Nature Human Behavior. That scale matters because touch research used to feel scattered. Massage studies over here, newborn care over there, anxiety experiments somewhere else. For adults, touch interventions were associated with benefits for pain, depression, state anxiety, and trait anxiety across the studies they analyzed. For newborns, touch was especially linked with cortisol regulation and weight gain, suggesting contact may shape stress and growth very early. The body, it seems, does not wait for language to decide whether the world is manageable. Skin often receives the first report. The same meta-analysis found human touch and object or robot touch showed similar physical benefits, but human touch showed stronger mental health benefits. That difference is important. Pressure can soothe tissue, but another person can also carry meaning, memory, permission, and trust. Affective touch research often focuses on gentle, socially meaningful contact, the kind tied to comfort, closeness, and emotional communication. A hand on your shoulder is not just pressure. It has a sender, a history, a relationship, and a question: is this welcome? Ugerlu and Keltner describe 4 routes: reducing negative emotion, increasing positive states, supporting reappraisal, and signaling safety. Let's stay with the first route. Downregulation is a cold word for a very familiar experience: panic losing its sharpest edge. Softly, think of the last time someone hugged you after bad news. The news stayed bad, but the room stopped tilting. Research on touch as emotion regulation argues that contact can shift emotional states before deliberate coping strategies even begin. This is why touch can feel faster than advice. Advice asks the mind to work. Touch may first tell the body it is protected. Of course, that message depends entirely on context. The same contact can comfort, crowd, dominate, flirt, threaten, or violate. So consider touch less like a universal medicine and more like a language. Its meaning changes with consent, culture, timing, and relationship. A friend's hand after a funeral is not a stranger's hand in an elevator. The skin may feel pressure. The person interprets intention. A 2025 systematic review found effective touch studies in mental illness are promising, but varied by diagnosis, method, and population. That caution matters. When people carry trauma, chronic anxiety, depression, or sensory sensitivity, touch can become complicated territory. If touch brings distress or confusion, consider discussing it with a qualified clinician. Research suggests patterns differ, and personal history matters. But when touch is welcome, it can do something language struggles to do: make care physically undeniable. Words can be doubted, compliments can feel strategic, explanations can arrive too late, but a steady hand can land beneath argument. Packheiser's team concluded that receiving touch is of critical importance, especially because benefits appeared across both physical and mental outcomes. The phrase "receiving touch" is doing real work there. Touch is not only what one person gives, it is what another person accepts. This separates regulation from intrusion. Regulation requires the nervous system to read the contact as support, not as another demand. One approach is simple: ask or make space for refusal. A small yes can make the same gesture feel entirely different. The Nature Human Behavior analysis also suggested more frequent touch interventions were associated with larger benefits than longer single sessions. That finding fits ordinary life. A brief squeeze every day may teach safety differently than one dramatic embrace after everything breaks. Small pause. Consistency is often how the body learns. Not from speeches, but from repeated signals that arrive when distress does. For newborns, the meta-analysis found parental touch appeared especially beneficial compared with touch from healthcare professionals. That does not diminish professional care. It points to something subtle. Bodies may respond not only to contact, but to belonging. Belonging is not abstract when it arrives through warmth, pressure, rhythm, and proximity. It becomes a physical prediction about safety. This is the safety signaling pathway. The nervous system asks, before language, am I facing this alone or with another body nearby? Maybe that is why we reach for hands during turbulence, medical results, apologies, and midnight phone calls we never wanted to receive. Ugerlu and Keltner argue interpersonal touch is central to emotional well-being because it can carry regulatory information directly. Regulatory information is an odd phrase, but it means the touch tells you how much threat to assign to the moment. A calm hand says, not magically but socially, I am not panicking with you. Borrow my steadiness for a second. This may help explain why touch can support reappraisal. The event has not changed, but its meaning becomes less lonely. The review on touch's emotion regulation includes reappraisal-related processes among the pathways through which touch may alter emotion. Reappraisal usually sounds cognitive. Find another interpretation. Change the frame. Touch may supply the frame before you can articulate it. The frame is not, everything is fine. It is smaller and more believable. This is hard and someone is here. If you enjoy this kind of careful psychology, consider liking or subscribing. It helps the show reach people who prefer nuance over shortcuts. Now, touch can also increase positive emotion. Not joy in the shallow sense, but warmth, relief, tenderness, and the feeling of being met. That is why a congratulatory hug differs from applause. Applause recognizes achievement. Touch says the recognition has crossed the distance between us. Distance matters. Social animals regulate each other partly by proximity. We are, in that sense, not sealed emotional containers. The 2024 meta-analysis found touch interventions benefited mental health even when the toucher was not a close partner. Quietly, that is both hopeful and delicate. Supportive touch can come from care, but it still has to be received as care. For people with limited human contact, weighted pressure or comforting objects may help physically, though research suggests social meaning matters for mental benefits. This is not an argument that everyone needs more touch from everyone. It is an argument for taking consensual touch seriously. Seriously does not mean grand. Often the most regulating touch is brief. A hand, a squeeze, a lean, a shoulder against yours. Packheiser and colleagues found no single touch type explained all benefits. The broader pattern pointed to touch as a flexible intervention. Flexible is another way of saying human. We use touch differently with babies, partners, patients, teammates, elders, strangers, and ourselves. Self-touch matters too. We rub our forehead, hold our own arms, press a palm to the chest when words collapse. The Nature review included both interpersonal touch and touch involving objects or robots, allowing researchers to compare social and non-social contact. That comparison asks a beautiful question: how much of touch is pressure? And how much is the mind recognizing another mind? The answer is probably not either or. Our bodies respond to force, temperature, rhythm, memory, expectation, and the social story around contact. This complexity is why touch belongs in psychology, not just romance. It sits where biology, culture, attachment, and ethics meet. The Mental Illness Review emphasizes the need for more standardized diagnosis-sensitive research before affective touch findings become clinical rules. So a careful takeaway is this: consider touch as one possible support, not a prescription, and always let consent lead. The hidden regulator is not hidden because it is rare. It is hidden because it is ordinary enough to disappear. We notice the speech, the advice, the plan. We forget the hand that made the speech bearable. We remember what someone said in a crisis, but sometimes the body remembers who sat close enough to be felt. That memory may be part of how emotion regulation works, not as inner strength alone, but as shared physiology. We borrow calm. We lend steadiness. We misread each other too, which is why boundaries are not obstacles to care. When offering comfort, consider the smallest respectful gesture first. A question, an open hand, or simply sitting near may be enough. When receiving comfort, notice your body. Does it soften, brace, pull away, or settle? That answer deserves to be trusted. Touch is powerful partly because it is never just touch. It is touch plus meaning, timing, memory, permission, and relationship. The next time a hand on your shoulder changes your breathing, you might not dismiss it as sentiment. You might recognize it as one body telling another, quietly and wordlessly, that the world is a little safer now.